Hey everyone, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Hopefully, you all have a wonderful, special day ahead. This is my weekly options watch list. Going to go over the top 5 plays that I'm looking at for the upcoming week, and also I'm going to do a little market breakdown here to see where we could potentially go this week. So, I'll start off here, as I always do, with a breakdown of the ES futures and what I'm kind of looking at and what we could potentially see going forward into this week. So that being said, let's look at its structure overall here first. So we have negatively stacked DMAs, which is bearish. Our squeeze histogram is below that zero line, which is also bearish. We are trading below the 21 EMA and have been rejecting it, which is also bearish. So everything about the stock market right now is definitely bearish. Nothing about it is really looking bullish, but that being said, we always do have to look for moments in time where we could get the reversion back up to the mean, like we did here with this large candle here the other day. So, what I am looking at this week is to see if this support can keep continuing to hold as it has. We have had some flushes below that level, but it every time does close back above that. So this could be a very, very strong support going forward to where we could get that reversion off of that level. We also did come down to the -2 ATR, which is extended to the downside, and there is a higher excuse me, probability of getting that reversion to the mean when you're at those extended levels. So definitely keep your eye on about that 4100 level on the ES to see if that level can hold this week, or if we start breaking down below it, which then we should start seeing quite a bit more selling coming into the market. So that was the daily time frame. Let's look over here at the weekly time frame, and this has a few more things that are a little concerning in my opinion. So we don't have negatively stacked DMAs, but we also don't have positively stacked DMAs, and its structure is still quite bearish also on the weekly. We are trading below that 21. We're actually rejecting this 8 EMA now on the weekly, and we have this low compression squeeze that is looking to fire to the downside, and if that does, we easily could go retest this -2 or even this -3 ATR on the weekly time frame. Um, just kind of depends on if this weekly squeeze will decide to fire to the downside or not. That we will be watching closely this week, along with that 4100 level on the ES. So that being said, let's go over the 5 plays I'm looking at for the upcoming week. The first one here is going to be GM, and I have a few plays that are to the upside and a few plays that are to the downside, just depending on what the market actually wants to do this week. So if we zoom in here on GM, we can see that it was in a strong downtrend, and it still is. We have negatively stacked EMAs. We're in a deceleration stage as well. Every time we get right around this 21 EMA, we then reject it to the downside, hitting either that -2 or -3 ATR. Same story here, climbs back up, gets rejected, and here's the climb once again. So this is the setup that is looking really good in my opinion. We have this daily squeeze setting up. We have the bearish momentum. Our price action is rejecting that 21 EMA here, and it is at a decent buy point when it is between that 21 and 8 EMA. So I do like this trade a lot to the downside. Look to take an entry ideally at that 21. Look for a fall to the -2 or -3 ATR to take your profits on GM. Alrighty, next one here is Coca-Cola to the upside. So we can see we had this great run here, just basically straight up. Got to extended levels on the daily time frame at that +3, and usually at those levels it has to revert. We got that reversion, held at this -1 ATR as we started to form the squeeze, and now we're kind of pinging back and forth right around that 21 EMA. I do like that we have the positively stacked EMAs, that we're trading above the 21. Do want to see this squeeze start to get some yellow bars on it to know that we do not have any more bearish momentum in this. So I would say probably a later in the week stock to trade, just wanting to have this squeeze kind of develop a little more. And then once that does, and if we start seeing some yellow bars, look for an entry once again, anywhere between the 21 or that 8 EMA, and then look to take profits. I would say back retesting these previous highs would be a good place in my opinion. And then Microsoft here is the next one to the downside. So if the market does continue especially with the Nasdaq looking so weak, continue to roll over to the downside. Microsoft will follow along with it. And if we look here, we can see that it keeps rejecting the 21, keeps rejecting the 21, keeps rejecting the 21 to the downside. We are a little extended, not too bad at this -1 ATR range, but do want to see a pop back up to the 21 for an entry to take to the downside. But I do like that we have this daily squeeze setting up with our histogram below that zero line. We have negatively stacked DMAs, and the price action is holding below the 21. So just look for that quick little pop back up there for an entry, and if the market continues to roll over, Microsoft will as well. All right, next one here is PPG. Had this one on my watch list last week, but its setup is still very valid. So we have had this long consolidation period here. It looks like we are almost going to break out with this squeeze, but then just gets rejected here as the market starts to sell off once again. And the trade still looks very valid now to the downside. So we do not have any stacked DMAs. Our price action is holding below that 21 EMA now, and we're getting some bearish momentum on the squeeze here, as we can see with this red histogram bar showing. So look for that reversion or little pop back up to the 8 or 21 EMA for an entry, and it could be a good trade down to the downside. Alrighty, last but not least here, we have Xcel Energy once again as well. This one's structure has kind of changed a little bit. I was more bullish on it, but now it is showing me that it is more bearish due to us not having any stacked EMAs. It cannot break above that 21 EMA to save its life here. It just keeps getting rejected, 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 rejected. And we have great bearish momentum on this squeeze histogram. So I do now like this trade to the downside as long as it keeps holding below that 21 EMA. And once again, look to take profits if you do enter at the -2 or the -3 ATR on Xcel Energy. So those are the top 5 stocks I'm looking at for the upcoming week. Hopefully it gives you all a few more plays you could add to your own watch list and a few other things you could be watching into this week. Let's go out there on Monday and start making some money, everybody.